There we go. All right. So after Juice Lord will be live. And yeah, I actually really liked because there were a few records on here that from musicians that I'd been following for a while, but I didn't realize they had like Devon Russell Gray. Always respected the work he's been putting out, but like I didn't realize so that release was on Merlin. They're like killing it. Like
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you know just from doing what you do, but it's hard to keep up with everything.
absolutely, and everything is so good and everything's so fractalized that people have their own lanes that like aren't even getting traditional press coverage, and people are like not even aware it's happening. Stand by. So we have Juice Lord there. If you're just tuning in, this is Desert Islands, the show where I make mixtapes based on my guests, 10 records that we bring to a desert island. And this is kind of a twist on the theme. We're having Keith Harris from Racket today doing a mixtape of the best records he heard in 2023. So that's we're kind of going through the local records right now. And I'm really glad we could have you on today because you also had a few records that would be on mine that I wanted to include last week on the local mixtape, but there could have been like 50 records that could have been published and had pieces about. But Anita Velveeta, for sure, that record was incredible.
Great,
We have
yeah.
Maida, Lady Midnight, who also continuously puts out great work and put out a fantastic record. And Juice Lord also had a really good year. It's hard to pay attention to it all because I feel like everyone kind of exists in their own universe, and everyone's been really, really doing some impressive work.
Yeah.
And I kind of missed a lot of it, so thanks for tracking it down.
Well, no, I mean that's the thing. I mean, this is basically my job is to keep up with this stuff, and I can't do it. So, excuse me. Yeah, one of the things this year that's really helped me is I've been keeping a running playlist that I've been
Mhm.
posting on Racket. Just adding 5 songs each week from 5 local
Yeah,
songs and 5 songs from everywhere else. And without that, I would have just been swamped when it came time to look back on the year.
not gonna
Because,
lie, without that, I would have been swamped. Like
yeah,
between
I
you
mean,
and Mr.
if
Wax,
if
it's
I
why I
don't,
asked you to be here. I was just like, oh, thank God they're paying attention.
yeah, and I'm absolutely certain that I'd left something off my list that tomorrow I'll be like, whoa, that's right. That it's just,
Oh yeah,
it's like with a lot of with a lot of national music, it's like people are talking about it constantly, and like certain records stay in circulation in the conversation, and when it
yeah,
comes time to make your list, you're like, oh, I know that I can look somewhere and see this and this and this. But with local music, it's so spread out that that deciding, just rounding it all up at the end of the year is a task in itself.
right. And a lot of this is like it's it's less akin to like an athletic team, like who had the most wins and losses, as much as like this is almost like Thrasher Skater of the Year. Like, can you really equate the best record? Because a lot of this is just like I don't know. I just really like this year, and there's a lot of things. There's so much happening, and it's yeah. So like I like the way we're doing it. This is not a ranking. This is just records of note. I've been really trying to stick to my guns of because I've definitely been guilty of putting records where it's just like, oh well, that's going to be talked about a lot, so that should be
Mhm.
on the list. Of just like, no, I want to actually listen to it. So a lot of times when things aren't on my list, it's not because I'm snubbing it as much as like I didn't have enough hours to even listen to it, and it's not a criticism of the work as much as, like you said, I it I don't understand how people even do this. So it takes a village. So why not do it on community radio?
Right.
So this next set, Molly Brandt was also on my list, but we also have Casey Ray. Thank you for mentioning this record because this record is really. I didn't even know Casey was from here, if I'm being honest. And this record is really, really shiny. And I picked Blockbuster just because it felt like a blockbuster to
Oh,
me.
it's such a, yeah, I mean, it's such a single.
Yeah, and it's like, how did I miss this? So thank you for putting that. We also have some Molly Brandt. And we're also getting into some Run Westy Run and Thank You, I'm Sorry, because I think the theme of this year is like, how do you keep up with all? And I was just talking with Emily Bugsy, and they were saying similar thing where it's just like they've been in the scene and we've both been in the scene in several bands, several iterations. It's like you have a band like Run Westy Run where it's like, oh yeah, of course I know who Run Westy Run is. But like a band like Thank You, I'm Sorry, I had no idea they were local. And that's a band I've seen on playlists where it's just it's kind of weird where even local musicians are going like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, that was kind of cheating because the singer doesn't live here, but the rest of the
That's
band
true.
does.
That's true.
So,
That's true. But I think we know a lot of local musicians who, myself included, are in similar band situationships.
oh, that's right.
So yeah, but there's a lot of people from LA who grew up in Minnesota that are still making music and bouncing tracks. But let's get into this Casey Ray record here on Desert Islands. I think. Okay, there we go. No, I just turned the monitors. Whenever I can't hear the monitors, that means a mic is on, and I'm just like, wait. Yeah, I think that's kind of why I equated Thank You, I'm Sorry with like, I thought they were kind of like a Rat Boys situation where it's like regional that is breaking into national,
Right.
that like kind of how we did that like Bon Iver thing where it's just like Bon Iver's local. It's just like that's
Yeah.
Bon Iver's from Wisconsin and regional pride, like hell yeah, Bon Iver, but like there's a reason he held the press conference in Eau Claire. Like the Twin Cities just can't, like, this is like the Eddie Izzard have you a flag bit where it's just like, but can you claim him? Our metro is bigger, so therefore Bon Iver is all banned. It's like, I don't think it works that way. So like, yeah, I don't want to do that situation, but like, that is also Chronically Online is a song I had because that's something I'm trying to change in myself.
Yeah. It's funny to think back to, there was a time when you could go offline. Like, remember, you'd be like, oh, I'm going online, I'm going offline. And now it's just, there's no such thing as that. It's always there. Whether you're looking at the internet or not, it's buzzing in your head.
It's really interesting. I've watched, especially in my students, just because it's like my generation kind of was that like patient zero generation where it's like a lot of the content creators from the elder millennial generation were like that, like first eternally online thing. But we also kind of remember, like you said, you could also get out of that and go play stickball or, like people, like, or go skateboard in the streets or like, there was still that, like,
or just somebody needed to use the phone, and
you would get kicked off.
Right.
Oh God, this has become this podcast. But like it happened.
Yeah, we're gonna be like that Facebook thing that's like, why don't the kids want to shovel anymore?
But like I've noticed in my students, like they're like a lot of that is just already baked in, like to them, like where it's like I like I'm coming at it where like they're already looking at me like, okay, like why don't you get into the nursing home, like,
right?
Because it's like that has always existed. It's been background radiation for Gen Z and Gen Alpha and newer, like it's just what the water is, that they're swimming in and that we're all swimming in. But I honestly wonder, and I don't want to have this conversation just because you're in the biz. I wonder if physical media is going to make a comeback. The problem is who has the money to do that, but problematic rich people.
Mhm.
And that's kind of
Who
because
has the
like
money to do anything?
exactly, because I see a longing for it
Hmm.
in like the just the body of people who go to these things. They consume media. They go to events, film festivals, beer festivals, town art festivals, music festivals, whatever they're doing. There is a longing for it. So it's like, no, I actually like when bands put out vinyl. I like when bands put out tapes because it is this fun little artifact. And now I'm hearing, no, like, me and the wife, we went to Barcelona and they have magazines. Like
Hmm.
I've heard people say, I miss actually having a physical thing. The problem is who can afford it.
Yeah. Well, we get all the time. We get, at Racket, we'll get people saying, well, are you guys ever going to go to print? And it's like, um, and I think it's one of those things where it's like everybody wants to be the sort of person who reads things in print,
Yeah.
including me, but
Yes.
none of us really are. Like if,
No.
it's like your ideal self is someone who acts in a certain way. But as
100%.
the internet shows us all our actual selves. We've got the numbers.
Absolutely. And then part of that is financial barriers, and that is not something I'm like gonna like turn my nose at, because like a lot of people want subscriptions to magazines because they like the tactile thing. They like supporting that, like that is the type of media they want to see more of, so they want to support it. But like you said, in an ideal world, like people would have more disposable income. But also part of that has been like the algorithm has beaten that out of us because convenience is king.
Mhm.
um, and I don't I must apologize earlier. I was more laughing at the situation, and not what you were saying, because like it just dawned on me that like even in your racket you still have to deal with the annoying arms foldy like pedal bros, where it's like, that should be true bypass. You should probably get this amp. It's like there's still people who are like, it's like, I really like your magazine. You know what you should do? You should do this. It's like,
Yeah.
God, it never ends. Wow, this is just a giant snake eating its own tail.
Yeah, and I think they're coming from like a genuine like interested place.
As are the dude
Yeah,
bros coming at
but
us.
yeah, but I mean, it's just impractical.
I actually think Racket has the right idea at this point, because like I think we're in a transitional phase, and I think this is the best model to ride it out. Like our station is kind of doing that model. Like, well, this isn't new. Like WFMU in New Jersey has, it's the exact same model as us, and like there's a few stations on the West Coast that do this, but it's kind of like, hey, like we're community powered, but like all the people involved, like we trust that we really like what they're doing. But it is like, online seems to be the medium, so we're focusing there because that's just where people are looking.
Yeah,
Like, let's be honest.
yeah, um, and and that's not to say that smaller independent things can't happen offline. I
Absolutely,
mean,
yeah.
people are zening more than they have in years, and
That's
that's great.
kind of cool. I think that's actually amazing, and the fact that like there's also things like like you can wax poetic about like the death of Rolling Stone or whatever, like think PC uh, speak. You can, but like there's also things like Razor Cake that have been around forever, and like there's still, like I still get psyched when I see my friends' bands on the cover of that thing, where it's like that is still real. And like you said, like zines are coming back, like people are making them more and more, and it's kind of inspiring. I just hope I don't know. It seems very Wild West right now, and America is just this chaos machine that I
Yeah.
think it's just they're just gonna let it happen and be like, yeah, like whatever survives this is gonna be the best media ever.
Mhm.
Like it's like social Darwinist way of looking at it. But I do think something is gonna happen. I just have no idea what to do about it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, if I had the foresight to know how to deal with these things, I would have done it years ago.
Well, I mean, there's also like um I don't know. This like this there's also this thing in America where like if you have a really good idea, there's just like there's always like a bigger fish looking at your idea going like, "Hey, that's a nice little idea you have there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it." Um
Yeah.
it's like that Simpsons bit where it's like you either get bought out where it's just like, hey, that's a really good idea. Let's work together. Or it's like Bill Gates where it's just like, we're here to buy you out.
Yeah.
Buy them out, boys. And they kind of make it harder for you to succeed until you give up kind of thing. And okay, I'm subtweeting that. I'm subtweeting Star Tribune buying city pages to kill it. God damn it!
Well, I mean, to be fair, they didn't. They didn't buy it to kill it. They did kill it. They. No, excuse me.
I said it. Not you.
Excuse
I
me.
said it, not you. I said it, not you. I'm falling on this grenade. I am being a
No.
smart.
I mean, they bought it because they thought it was going to make them money, and it did.
No, of course.
But yeah, and I mean, but that's the thing. It's like if you look at the history of City Pages, it's like City Pages was initially bought in '97.
Yeah.
By the company that owned The Voice, and then they were sold again to a different group, and then they were sold again to a different group. So there was no independent City Pages that was being co-opted there at that point.
No. That's just kind of like how it happens.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like a bleak reality of just like that is just kind of like how things kind of work. It's like this venture capital-y way of like, oh, we'll just do this and like do this and like streamline it and like try. It's like if it's hard, it's a hard business to do. I don't know how to.
I mean, the thing is, there's no outside of capitalism.
No,
it just isn't.
No,
like you can find a little corner where they don't notice you for a while.
Yes,
but I mean, it's a process that's at work, and the process has sped up in recent years. And
that is definitely the thing, because I am one of those artists that has found a place where it's like you're not noticing me, but I found a way to make it work. But because of that, I associate a lot of people who are just like, let's get this over with. Let's get rid of this. And it's just like, yeah, like I'm all for it. Like we need a better system, but like I'm not smart enough to come up with one. And until we kind of, because I think part of it is like we all kind of have to agree on it, like that. Right. Like we're in this together. Until we can kind of figure out a better thing. And I know we all want a better thing. This is what we got. And it sucks, but like, I don't know. It just becomes learn to swim after a while, because like that's what, when you are an artist that finds your little niche and you can make it work, like you're in that pond, and then the bigger pond is just full of either entities that like think you could be useful in the coral reef, or just sharks that you're food. you are food for them.
And I mean, I guess all we can do in the meantime is, we can do the creative things we do, and we can do them in collaboration with other people, and we can create models of how people can work together and think up new ways of doing things that may not lead anywhere, but are examples of like, this is
this
is what we're going for.
you know, like, and
What's that?
it's growing in a direction though. And I
Yeah.
use the word growing intentionally because it's not just like going, like it's, I think it's like, it's more of like the mycelium model of just like, yeah, like it's not just, I think everything's so atomized that like everyone kind of lives on their own island and they feel isolated and they view the press as different from them and they view like the crew that works these events as different from them, when in reality, like when big events come to town, we're all the people, like we're all there working the events,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So it's like we're kind of playing the same game, you know, like we're kind of like, when we all are doing well, that's a good thing. And and I think the internet does a really good job of like creating this illusion that like, oh, we're all separate, but like, yeah. So like, I think it's like, even if stuff doesn't work out, the fact that, you know, we're trying stuff and trying new models is a good thing. What
Yeah,
is going to fix the wall? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, the internet is definitely atomizing. Like the way.
Yeah, and I gotta watch how I use it.
Yeah, no, because it's really like, it makes you really feel that you're alone and fighting this battle against everyone else.
Yeah,
And what you see from that is then when people do group together, it's in really unhealthy ways
yeah,
because
and we're,
everyone feels so vulnerable that
yes,
you
yeah, and it's I definitely think the problem is, it's like I used to be more optimistic than I want to get back to that because I like that part of myself, but the problem is we are at just this point where it's just like we're at like that breakthrough thing where it's just like things are like gonna be amazing forever, or
Mhm.
like, so it's like it's hard not to be like doom scrolly about everything, not just
Right.
like art and music, but like, you know, the fact that Nestle is just like, yeah, I don't think water's a human right. It's like, what? How'd the Overton window get that?
Yeah.
How we even having that conversation like normal adults? Um, but up next,
Meanwhile, we're talking about the year in music, right?
yeah. Why I just think it's funny that we're talking about this when the next song on the playlist is literally from "You're Scaring the Hose." So, calm down, you two. You're
I am
scaring.
one scared home.
um, I
Well, you
do.
found a song on there that you can play?
I found a clean version.
Oh, okay.
So like I do think the master might be ultra loud.
Okay.
Uh, so I'm gonna do an underwriting break and then kind of get there. So stand by.
Sure.
Chronically online, and if you're following us, we were talking about being chronically online for better or worse. And if you're one of the folks that likes to play along at home, I'm speaking with Keith Harris of Racket here on Desert Islands. But please don't do so while you're driving. I know I say this every week, but it's because I literally see people watching videos while they're driving. This thing gets archived. You can watch it later. So yeah, that
Get
concludes.
home safe.
Yes, exactly. That concludes the local bit of your year-end best list, which we're making a mixtape of the best records Keith Harris listened to this year. We had some Casey Ray, Molly Brandt, Run Westy Run. Thank you, I'm sorry. And up next, we have some Danny Brown and JPEG Mafia. We also have some 100 Gex. But first, we have this. Okay, you can still hear me, right? Okay, yeah. No, I loved. It's funny that you say that. because like some albums are easier to track down than others, and some aren't. Oh, this is a longer cart than I thought it was. Hold on. Let's see if we can. I also get paranoid.
What is that?
Oh, it's the intro to Lean Beef Patty.
Okay, it sounds like Smurfs.
It's like, yeah, well, through the weird cell phone style audio, it probably does.
Yeah.
But yeah, any record that starts off with and we're on the off mic portion. Yep, it's almost clipping. There we go. Fuck Elon Musk gets me that every single time. But yeah, I had to track down a clean version of this track, and it's kind of weird because like this album only has like a few tracks that people made edits of, and I don't like making edits.
Yeah.
For me, like if the artist didn't want to release a clean edit, that's how they want it. So I'll ride the mute button, but I won't. I know certain DJs like they will home cook their own edits, and I just think that's a little bit weird. But there are forums that make it's mainly like young college radio DJs who DJ on the side, who like they just want to get away with playing it on their college radio show.
Right.
And I think that's where I got this one as well.
I mean, it's still very funny that radio is regulated in this way.
I don't get it. I like the pearl clutching.
Well, I know the legal basis of it.
Yes, I do too. I do too. But like, I understand it. I just don't get it because like we have watched like so many people use these mediums in bad faith.
Right.
That it's just like, okay, like can you just let me play a band that curses? I'm not even like shock jock radio. Like can we just let us play the version that's on the record? I think most people tuning into this program like because there are instances where like I will play a version of a song that is labeled clean, and it's not because like sometimes there's like an ad lib that someone swears in and they forget about it, and most of the time I just feel like people hear it and they just think it's funny, like they're not calling it a complaint. But you're right, I do get why there's a legal basis for it.
But it is funny that sort of if we're going to accept the fact that radio is a public good,
yes,
for some reason that means you can't curse on the radio, but it doesn't mean you can't exploit it to say whatever
exactly. And well, this song's about to end. Let's get back on here.
Oh, that was quick.
So $1 million by 100 Gex, JPEG Mafia, and Danny Brown. You're Scaring the Hose. That record did quite well. I'm not sure if the Hose were scared. I think the Hose are here for it.
Maybe the Hose like to be scared.
Yeah, this Hose.
It's like going to a horror movie.
I mean, I did have to. One of the reasons that record wasn't on my year-end list was not because I wasn't listening to it as much as like I didn't think I could find a clean version. Right. So I was like, okay, well that's sometimes when I make my year-end best list, and you'll find out next week. So I should probably keep this to a minimum because I know you're short on time. It's just because like, oh, well, that has too many swears, so I'll probably just pick another record I was listening to. So I'm glad you listened to it because it forced me to actually track one down because I did like this record. And 100 gecs, that's another record that not to be. This isn't a bit, but like I feel like my ADHD is so bad I forgot this record came out, and that's kind of funny because ADHD is like that's like their core.
I know, really. they're basically like ADHD core.
Yeah, and I love them for it. But yeah, those are two records that were definitely kind of on my list, but also that record does a lot of the songs I want to play have swears, and I don't want to make an edit. I really don't. So I'm glad I have you on this talk break because we already played, some of the heavy hitters. We haven't gotten to Olivia Rodrigo yet. You also have Speedy Ortiz, and some really, really cool instrumental records and electronic records, especially Jlin, Kate, and B. I was introduced to these artists by you, so thank you.
Oh, cool.
That. But I love that you included Billy Woods because there is so much great hip hop that came out this year that I missed, and so thank you for including this record. But can you talk about DJ Blacklow, this record? Like, how did you discover this record? Because what did you like about this record?
Well, it's put out by this label, Awesome Tapes for Africa, who I've followed for years and kind of trust their tastes.
Yeah.
And so he had a really like a much more upbeat record a couple years ago. And then this one is much moodier and much I don't want to say downbeat, but sort of, it's not going to get you jumping out of your seat.
No, but I like
the vibe of it.
Yeah, and there's a couple tracks on it that I just feel like you can just kind of let it inhabit your house, if that makes sense. Just kind of put it on and feel it. I know you're short on time, so let's actually listen to these records. If you are following along off home, we are chatting off mic as well. But if you're just tuning in, this is Desert Islands, the show where I make mixtapes based on my guests, 10 records they would bring to a desert island. Doing a little bit twist on the concept today. Keith Harris is here, and we're talking about the best music of 2023, and that's what the mixtape is. The best records Keith Harris heard this year. Here is a track called The Layover off of Billy Woods' latest record, Maps. Sorry, I just realized it's like 11:30.
And no problem, time goes fast.
Really dig this Billy Woods record. And there's so many hip hop records.
It's so great when a guy just like hits his stride.
Yeah.
And kind of do no wrong. And like once when someone hits that level, and that's really where he is right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's
he's not young. I like the fact that he's like 40.
Yeah.
I love his own.
I love seeing artists like that because like I do think we have the narrative a little bit flipped in at least the Western mindset of just like, your best stuff is done when you're 26. It's just like, does anyone remember how your brain felt at age 26? There's no way. Mm-hmm. There's no way the best stuff. I mean, for some people, maybe, but like, I definitely do think there is value in someone who, like one of my favorite bands of all time is Morphine.
Uh-huh.
And like Mark Sandman lived an entire, like he lived several lives before he started that band. Like he didn't start becoming a musician till like age like 30 after, working as a fisherman, working in canneries, going to, like mountainous regions, like South America and like touring the country, just, like that last generation of Kerouac stuff. And, James Murphy, LCD Sound System is another, it's like, didn't really start that. Like, I love artists who it's just like, I think some people make their best work after they've had some time to actually be like, well, who am I? What's my voice? What do I have to say? Because to me, that's the art I like. Not the like, oh, this is like the best, where it's like this is the most technically. It's just like I just like artists that are so themselves. No one else sounds like them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's really important in rap where first
Yeah,
off you're seeing like a whole generation dying off in their 50s, which is
it's wild, actually.
horrible.
Yeah,
So so there's so many people who are it's crazy. It's like they're in their 50s, but they're also founders
yeah,
essentially,
yeah,
uh, who we're not going to hear from again. So and it's still and there's always been in rap this this generation clash, where you always have to knock your idols off so that you can,
yeah,
you can take the mic. But I think but hearing people rap in middle age is, hearing the music expand in ways that it only can when you reach a certain age
yeah.
is really important. Especially, because this year we had the Andre 3000 saying, "I don't even know what to rap about anymore
I
because
am
I'm so
so
old."
glad
It's
you
like
brought that up
you
because
totally could.
he told because that, and
If
it's
you don't
funny you
want
say
to, that's fine. If you want to play flute, that's fine. But
that. That's exactly the point I was going to bring up, because like that record actually made my honorable mentions, just because one, I think it's cool that art can still piss people off in that way. Where it's
mhm.
like, he made a flute record, and like that was a controversy, and it's a pretty nice record. Like if you throw it on, I like the way it sounds. Like, it's not my favorite record of all time, but like I dug it, and the fact that a record like that caused a controversy, but he did say something where it's like, yeah, what am I going to say at age 40? I'm like, I don't know, Andre. Like, I don't want to pressure you back into rapping, because, like, if you feel like you are most expressive with this tool in your hands, like, I get that mindset 100%.
And maybe he'll have something to say when he gets to 55.
That, and but that's where I'm at too, where it's just like, I honestly think you have a perspective, and I think but you don't have to use rap to do it. But
Right.
Andre, I really do think you have you, you got more bars in you, bud. You
Yeah.
do.
And you
You
think,
do.
well, you think of all those musicians, all those artists who've had sort of middle age slumps. I mean, your 40s is a tough time for a lot of people. But then
Yeah.
when they hit their 50s,
Yeah.
because you're no longer worried about whether you're young or not, you're just sort of making your own mature music.
Yes.
I think it eventually, like the burden sloughs off a little, and you can just kind of
Absolutely.
relax and do what you do.
And
And
you hit your stride a little bit too.
yeah,
You're like, you're figuring out the new landscape,
yeah,
and there's like a, like you know what risks you want to take. You know what you want to see now, and it's I don't know. I a lot of my favorite artists, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's just like, it's like the whole like, well, why do we shouldn't even want Radiohead to come back because it's probably not even going to be good. It's just like, I don't know. I like the Smile record was good. Maybe the fact that they're taking time, it's like an old and wizened Radiohead, like a Moon-Shaped Pool. That was a cool record. Like I could see,
yeah.
like
There's nothing particularly youthful about Radiohead that would be lost.
yeah, like like why I would love to see more. But
But on the
it,
other hand, I don't begrudge anybody who sits out their 40s, having grown up in the 80s and seen what it could do to seeing what being in your 40s could do to all those guys from the 60s.
oh god, yeah. Well, I mean,
But then again, you get to your 50s and you're Bob Dylan and you just sort of do your own thing.
yeah. I mean, there is like I think what you said is just like, it's like being in your 40s is hard, and I
Yeah.
think like when you're used to, especially that generation, like a lot of those folks, they became famous at a certain age, and like when you become like they've just, like they're like 18 for 30 years,
Right.
so it's just like, it's when you're existing at 40 and you haven't had to like progress mentally past the age of 25 because you were in one of the biggest rock bands of all time. Yeah, there's probably going to be a temptation to go numb certain feelings with trucks. And if you survive that, yeah, some people like kind of, I don't know, like Wayne Coyne's kind of inspiring. Like he's kind of aging into the weird eccentric very gracefully. I gotta get that.
Okay, I actually really do need to run now, though.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for spending the time. I know how busy everything goes, and yeah, it's good to see you. Good to run into.
Good to see you too. Thanks. I love doing this. So hope to see you next year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's do it. Well, thanks for spending the time. This track's about the end anyway. So why don't we just close the window and then I'll do the break live, and then
okay, sounds good.
That's it. All right. Have a good day.
Good seeing you.